We're now going to review the vertical design of our grading string, and to do this we're going to go to the vertical grading tab at the top of the form. This is the grid editor which we briefly reviewed on our first grading string. The grid editor is available for all strings within the project, not just specifically for grading strings. The cells that we have within the form are editable, so if we wanted to go in and make a change we could do. What we're going to do is look at how we can add elevations along our polyline at different points of our choosing. So to do this, we're going to find the first button on the bottom left hand corner of the form, which is Add IP by selecting in the drawing. Go ahead and click on that button. What we're now going to do is zoom in to the interior corner of the polyline, and we're going to left click on this particular location here. If you've got your snaps turned on, that's going to be helpful. If you haven't, and you for some reason click off to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter. The software is going to interpolate the closest chainage on the polyline from where you've clicked. You can see there that we're now presented with a brand new chainage and an elevation. So let's try changing the elevation to the following. As soon as you've done that, press enter. You can see as we make that change, the surface is updating in the drawing environment. With that, the forward grades and back grades are also updating, and the elevation will change to coincide with that particular value we've put in. Just going to change that back to 42 and press enter. You can see that the drawing updates immediately. If we decide we no longer want this particular IP being added in, we can simply left click on any one of the cells related to that row, come down to the bottom of the form and click on delete IP, and this will delete the one that we've got selected, and you can see that that's being removed immediately from the drawing. There may be an occasion where you have multiple different points along your polyline, and running the add IP by selection in the drawing is a fairly manual process. However, there is an alternative way of doing this, which is to add an IP at every change of geometry within or along the polyline. So we're going to go ahead and click on this particular button now. This works slightly differently to the button to the right hand side, which was when we matched onto the target surface. This will keep any IPs that you've already designed. It will not delete them and override them. We're going to click on yes, and you can see that we've now got every change of direction along our polyline with an opportunity to change its elevation. Now, there could be a point where you don't actually know where it's located within the drawing. So for example, we've got chainage 216 here. We might want to see where that is found along our grading string. Down the bottom of the form, we have a zoom to IP. So whichever row we've got highlighted, we can select that button and the software will zoom to that particular location for us. And as you can see, as I select a different row and click on the zoom button, I can zoom into that particular point and find it. Again, you've still got the option to delete specific IPs that you no longer want within your design. If we wanted to raise or lower all IPs by a set amount, I can do that by clicking on the following button to the right hand side of delete IP. Now we may decide that this whole design needs to go up by, I don't know, half a meter, so we could put 0.5, click OK. That's now raised the elevations of all those IPs up by half a meter. There are some additional tools found in what's known as the vertical grading editor, which we'll look at when we come to our road string, which will enable you to undertake a similar process. There is also the option to be able to shift chainages. So if you find yourself in a position where you have a linear grading string starting and ending at two different points, you may want to shift the chainages by a set amount, and you can see there we can do that using that particular button. There's one final tool found on the bottom of the ribbon here, which is the reference IP tool, and we're going to look at using that within the context of the basin. Before we do that, we will just quickly click on the vertical grading editor button, so go ahead and click on that now. This is just to show you the vertical design in profile of the particular grading string, and we are going to look in great detail at how we can manage the vertical design using the vertical grading editor, in addition to using the grid editor later on. For the time being, close the form at the top right and close the grading form at the top right as well.